Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett, who will choose a side salad over French fries every time, but you will still steal my French fries, won't you? Because
every time.
Because they're delicious.
Every time.
They're delicious.
And Michelle Lewis, who was born in Texas, but can't even pronounce Waxahachie.
Waxahachie.
How's that?
That was pretty good.
I went out on a limb on that, Michelle.
You did, but that was...
Waxahachie.
Well, how do you... Is it Waxahachie?
It's Waxahachie. Waxahachie.
What's the story behind the name Waxahachie?
I have no idea.
Well,
It's
congratulations.
up by Dallas.
Oh, yeah, it is by Dallas.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a weird question for you. Do you have like a weird smell that you like that's like not like flowers, something that's just like weird, like mine matches.
Yeah.
I like matches.
Burnt matches?
No, but like the old
Like,
box of matches.
Really, like the smell of unburnt matches?
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm probably missing some vitamin.
It's
or
probably
deficit or
true.
something.
You need more calcium in your diet. I think I was thinking about probably wet dirt, like, a garden, or when you're doing, planting plants.
Wet
or
dirt.
Wet dirt.
I guess it's better than a wet dog.
Much better than a wet dog. I hate the smell of a wet dog.
Dirt. So, speaking of wet dirt, I don't think a lot of people, except people that are native, know what dillo dirt is. And maybe even some people that are native don't really know.
I bet you a lot of people don't know what dillo dirt is, because I never had heard of it until that episode at ACL, which was, what year was that?
So 2009.
No way.
2009. Can you believe it? And it was dubbed, you ready for this? The electric mudslide.
Oh, God.
And basically what it was the first real rainy day in ACL's history, ever in the history. And it was a pour down. And
it dumped.
It totally dumped. But in years past, it had been a dust bowl, and it was really bad, respiratory issues and stuff. So I think it's C3 who helps put it on. They donated to the city $2.5 million in fresh sod. And this sod was also put down with, quote, dillo dirt.
Dillo dirt.
From the Austin Municipal or Austin Water Utility District. And once it started to pour down rain, about 65,000 concert goers, very reminiscent
trampled through it.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Woodstock. Yeah. Were trampling, covered in mud from head
The smart
to
ones only had it up to their knees, but there were some people that were doing like slip and slide and
dances,
full faces full of it and putting it in their hair.
And artists on stage were encouraging it because it was, if you kind of look at it, it was kind of a cool aesthetic if you kind of look at it because it's pouring down rain. So
there were couples hugging each other, covered in head to toe with mud.
Well, dillo dirt is sold as fertilizer, right? But it is actually made from sewer sludge by the city of Austin Water Utility District. They started it the concept started in 1989. And this compost is actually the first of its kind in Texas, and it's one of the oldest in the nation. But given the fact that it is made with sewer sludge.
It's human waste.
Apparently, and I'm going to use some air quotes here, the heat generated by it, it's 130 degrees to 170 degrees, is, ready, quote, sufficient to, quote, virtually eliminate human and plant pathogens. And it's cured for over several months. I don't know what that means. It's like a fine aged wine. Meets all of Texas and EPA requirements for another air quote, unrestricted use, which means you can use it in your vegetable gardens.
Oh, my God.
So your organic tomatoes.
I can't imagine waking up on Monday morning and seeing the front page of the Austin Statesman with pictures of people rolling around and all that stuff, and then reading what it actually was that they were rolling around in.
Delicious. Organic.
Yeah, at least Woodstock was actually a mud farm field. I don't think there was any human waste sludge in there.
No, this was interesting.
There's pictures online. It's really crazy times. Hey, real quick, Hayes County has closed its county clerk offices in Kyle, Dripping Springs, and Wimberley due to staffing issues.
Really?
Yep. So the main office in San Marcos is still open. So if you go over to do any business with Hayes County and the Dripping Springs office over there off of Roger Hanks, it's closed.
What is up with all these staffing
They can't
issues?
find people to work. But
where did they go? Did they go like the Kansas cows and just all drop dead?
they all dropped dead. Yeah. Yep. Unknown causes. What are you guys going to do this summer?
Well, we went to Hawaii. We're going to go to Yosemite, and I have a wedding this summer.
Yes, in August.
Another wedding. So,
and it's outside.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. The wedding's not outside. The wedding's in a chapel. The cocktail hour is outside, and then the reception's inside.
Okay. So the cocktail hour needs to be very short.
Very,
it's August
very,
in
very
Texas.
short. Yes.
I was thinking about stuff to do in summer in Austin that's sort of like day trips or half day trips. Have you done any of that kind of stuff? And what have you enjoyed?
With my kids, we used to buy what are they called? Season passes to Fiesta, Texas, and Schlitterbahn or SeaWorld, and I used to kind of drive over there. That was kind of an easy day trip. But in Austin, I would take the kids to go do like quirky things. Like we would play Walmart bingo at midnight. And
what's that?
I would make these funny bingo cards. Like you had to go, okay, for instance, if you can find a baby in the cart with also beer in the cart at midnight, then you had to take a picture.
Really?
Yeah. Or if you could find an American flag that was made in China that was on your bingo card.
That's cool.
So we made these kind of funny Walmart bingo cards. That was like when they were teenagers.
You put some effort into that stuff.
We also kind of would wander into the Driscoll Hotel because it's
haunted.
I've been kicked out more times than not because taking teenagers down there.
You're not allowed to go walk around in there?
No, if you're not a guest. You probably are allowed to walk in the lobby, but we would go up the elevators and security would. I was like, oh, so sorry.
You know what made me kind of think of this was I had a closing up in North Austin, and I was driving across the 360 bridge today, and I looked down at the pretty water in Lake Austin, and I thought, things to do in Austin and Dripping Springs in the summer, a day on the lake in Lake Austin. It's such a beautiful lake. It is a beautiful lake. It's a constant level lake, so it's not like some of these other lakes where, like Lake Travis is really dry right now.
Yeah, but if you have little kids, and you're trying to entertain, if you don't have a boat or something, I can't remember the name of the park over off of 360 and there's a park, Elizabeth something Park. I can't think of the name of the park.
Kind of down by the mall, by the.
It's further. It's past the bridge, the 360 bridge. You go over the bridge, and then you go. It's kind of by Mount Bonnell.
Emma Long Park.
That's it. Emma Long. It was
Emma Long Park.
Yeah, and so you could go out there, and there was also this really cool little Westlake Beach park I used to like to take the kids to, and it was very inexpensive, very hidden.
And it's on Lake Austin.
It's in Westlake, and it's just like this. You could rent tubes and kayaks and. They had like a water slide. It's a little niche, little bougie kind of park out there. Little bougie. But you also have Founders. But I think I took the kids to Founders here one time. Speaking of staffing issues, Founders Park is only going to be open until August. I think
the pool at Founders Park.
August 16th due to staffing issues.
Oh gosh, that's crazy.
So, but yeah,
my favorite place to go for like a dip is Barton Springs.
Yeah, I took the kids out to Barton Springs, but there was kind of some crazy.
It's downtown Austin now, but I looked it up. It used to be like $1 or something to go, but if you're an Austin resident now, it's $5, and if you're out of city, like Dripping Springs, if you live in Dripping Springs, it's $10 a person. Plus, you have to pay to park. So a family of 4 now is going to spend $50 to go to Barton Springs and jump in the cold water. At
Founders over here, you're also paying, and it's like they have resident and non-resident prices. But you can also buy. I didn't know this. You can buy a season ticket, season pass.
That's cool. Yeah.
To it, but it goes upwards. I think for kids under 3 is free, but it's like $3. $4.
Well, you know what else you could do is join the YMCA. They have that kiddie pool.
They're expensive now.
Yeah, but join it for a couple months.
I used to be a member of the Y, and we used to go all the way. They used to have this huge water slide. Where is that? That's in East Austin. We used to go up there.
They've got the one over here in Dripping has a real nice kid pool out back. They've got the lap swim pool where if you got older kids, they can play it. They always have a couple lanes for kids they have a basketball hoop and stuff. And then they have a kiddie pool with like, there's a little slide and then there's those buckets that fill up and dump on you and there's fountains.
Yeah, that's kind of like the way it was. I didn't know that they had that now.
Yeah. I kind of struggled saying this. I give you a little Austin old timers heads up here. If you go into Barton Springs before 8 o'clock in the morning, it's free. Oh. So if you get there at 7:55, you walk in, it's free. And they don't kick you out at 8 o'clock. You only start paying. They make people pay at 8 o'clock. Now, generally, when you go in before 8, most of the people there are either runners jumping in the water or lap swimmers. So I don't think you can even use a diving board, but.
So you can stake out your spot.
And if you go down there and you get a little bored at Barton Springs, you can go for a hike on the Barton Greenbelt, which is totally free.
That is free, but it's super hot. And also
it's shaded though.
You're not supposed to bring your dogs out there anymore. Let your dogs in the water.
Stuff. Yeah, I know.
But here
the algae in the water.
Around the area around Dripping Springs, you can go to Pedernales. But you need a reservation for that. But Reimers Park or Reimers Ranch, you don't need a reservation. But
Hamilton Pool,
you need a reservation.
You need a reservation for Hamilton Pool now.
Camp Ben, people don't really know about Camp Ben. Camp Ben is across the street from Salt Lick, and you can tube and swim. One of our favorites is in Wimberley, Blue Hole.
Blue Hole.
We loved Blue Hole. We were there a lot. And Camp Lucy. At the hotel, you can buy a day pool pass.
Oh, really?
You can sit out, especially if you just want to have adults. Is it
boy? You just cannot stop banging that microphone today. Is it like a lap pool or is it just like a?
It's a resort pool.
Yeah,
a resort pool. But there's some free stuff to do. They used to have little matinees at the movie theater. You could go for like $1 or $2, but those days are probably you go to the movies and for a nickel.
Yeah. I got a couple more. Go for a walk around the lake, downtown Austin, around Lady Bird Lake or Town Lake.
So all of these are like, now remember.
I know.
I'm thinking of lugging 3 little kids around.
Well, not everybody has 3 little kids.
Yeah, but if you're looking for stuff to do.
How about, these are 3 little kids.
I'm going to poop on all of your
I can tell. How about... go for watch the sunrise or sunset at Mount Bunnell.
Oh, well, yeah.
Take a coffee and donuts up there and sit and watch the sunrise.
Okay, with 3 little kids, I'm going to take screaming 3 kids. I'm going to bribe them with donuts.
Man, I think you just need to raise your kids better. Jeez, screaming kids. Jeez.
Okay, what time is sunrise?
This time of year, it's like 5:45.
Okay, so you tell me how easy it was getting your 3 kids up. Think of 10 and under.
Sunset then.
Okay, sunset. And you go to Sonic, you get a slushie.
That's right. And they sit up there and watch the sunset across all the wealthy houses.
Crush up a little Benadryl so they sleep on the way home.
That's right. Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center.
That's nice. Hot.
It's $12 a person.
Oh, wow. Yeah, God, they went up.
Yep. Wow. And I got a couple weird ones, but drive to see the world's largest cowboy boots in San Antonio. They're 35 feet tall.
That's at North Star Mall.
Yes, that's right. 35 feet tall, 35 feet long.
So one of the other things I used to take the kids to do, which was fun and free, I would take them, my boys love this, I would take them to pawn shops because they would like to go look at all the stuff. Yeah. And I would take them to antique stores and they would kind of just wander around.
I think I would have liked both of those when I was a kid.
The boys and their friends, they started getting their friends, Mama Lewis, take us to the pawn shop. And we'd go to the pawn shop and I'd just go let them look at all the junk.
Guns and tools and
airsoft and lawnmowers.
Did you ever get sucked into buying
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course I did.
Yeah, but it's cheaper, I guess, than going to like Disneyland or something.
Yeah, true.
Cathedral of Junk. Have you ever done that? Do you know what that is?
Yes, that's not here in Austin.
It is. Cathedral of Junk's in a neighborhood in Southside Austin. It's a guy, he started it in 1988. His name's Vince Hanneman, and he's got 60 tons of junk built into a sculpture in his backyard.
That sounds like a neighbor, nightmare.
Yeah, I know.
Is that
How'd you like to live
same
next door to that?
Area that does the Christmas lights?
I don't think so. It's not in the best area of Austin, if I remember right, because we went over there to try and see it once, but now a couple years ago, all the TripAdvisor and all these places put it on as the must-do thing, and he got overwhelmed. So now it's by appointment only, and he's pretty selective on who he lets in there.
I also used to take my kids, and I'd buy spray paint, or I'd have random spray paint at the house and take them, and it's not open anymore. I can't remember what it was called, but it was that area.
Oh, yeah. It was a condo project that they were going to build in the 80s, I think. It's down across kind of catty corner from Whole Foods.
Yes.
Oh, what's it called?
I can't remember, but I take them down there and I just let them spray paint.
Yeah.
So I've
done that a few times.
Pawn
it's
shops
fun.
and spray paint.
You're very creative. The last one I got is the Museum of the Weird on 6th Street.
I have been to that, but I haven't been sober.
Oh, that'd probably be the best way to go. It's full of fun facts about stuff like the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, fairies, other monsters.
It's a waste of money. It's a giant. It's actually, I think, in the back of like a either gift shop or I don't know. It's some little T-shirt place or something like that.
Is that right?
Yeah, so you just kind of happen to find it.
Well, and it's $12. So.
Yeah, it's and guess who's going to pay it? Drunk people on 6th Street.
Yeah, I guess it's a good location for that. Well, so the Museum of the Weird made me think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That movie. A lot of our listeners probably have no idea what that is because that movie's from 1974. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Have you seen it? Did you see it when you were?
I think I saw it a long time ago, but I wouldn't watch it now.
Yeah, no.
And you remember the premise? It's a couple hitchhiking, and they run out of gas, and they end up going to this house that's close there, and there's a bunch of cannibals in there that are chopping people up and eating them. You
know, we got a food shortage right now. So.
Yeah, I know. But did you know that it actually, the movie starts out saying that it's one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, and it's actually not based on a true story. It's based loosely on two serial killers. Ed Gein and Elmer Wayne Henley were these two serial killers. One was in 1950 and one was a few years after that. But and the Ed Gein, he killed two women. But this Elmer Wayne Henley was known for digging up graves and making decorations and necklaces and stuff with bones and skin. And he was a pretty weird dude.
That doesn't sound...
I know. But, a lot of people think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is completely made up. And it kind of is, but it is loosely based on this guy. Ed Gein was known as the Plainfield Ghoul. I don't know what that's all about, but he would exhume corpses from local graveyards, fashion trophies and keepsakes from their bones and skin, and confess to killing at least two women.
So the location is up in North Austin, Quick Hill Road near Round Rock, where they filmed it.
Where the house? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a 1900s farmhouse.
Really?
Up in Round Rock. Yeah, so you can, I don't know if you can drive by it, but I think there's a shopping center there now. Where La Frontera development is now located.
La Frontera. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've driven by there.
So,
recently.
it's an interesting little quirky tidbit.
That's, I wonder how many of our friends from California think about that when they think, yeah, we'll move to Texas. That's where Texas Chainsaw Massacre is from.
But the real crime actually didn't, or the loosely based real crime didn't actually happen in Texas. It happened in Wisconsin, so they don't have to worry about it. We have our own other set of wackos and crazies here.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do.
Don't worry about that. No. They probably all live in Waxahachie too.
Waxahachie.
So speaking of April Miller. Speaking of wackos and weirdos, we're going to have April Miller on, and she is a former Dripping Springs Driftwood resident, raised her kids here, and
now lives in Panama.
Well, no, fill in the blank. I think right now she's in Scotland.
Ireland. She's in Ireland now.
Ireland. She's living the expat lifestyle, which is horrifying to me because she lives out of one suitcase and a backpack. And I do not see how she's doing that.
But she comes home to the States here every once in a while. So we have a chance to visit with her. And she's the first real estate agent we've had on because we haven't had any other ones.
That's right.
So, oops.
Oh, way to go.
I'm hitting the mic.
Steve, stop hitting the mic. Yeah. It's distracting.
But we're going to take a little break, and we're going to get April in here. Super excited about that. And we will talk to you soon.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Well, Miss Miller, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I was actually already recording.
I'm honored to be here. I'm excited about it. I do listen to y'all.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. You don't live in Dripping Springs anymore, but you did for a long time.
Well, technically Driftwood, but my kids, they went through high school in Drip and graduated Drip, and we were living here until last September. We decided to pull the plug.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to talk a lot about that. We want to just kind of get a background about you. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in New Mexico, Air Force brat. We moved from there to California, Central Valley, and then moved to Guam, and then moved back to California, then to England.
Yeah,
it's been.
I'm a Navy brat. I do the same thing. Like, just Japan before Spain.
That's what I was just thinking. Wait, was California after?
Yeah.
So
I've lived in Texas.
Your whole life. Yeah.
Actually, there was a stint I lived in Florida, but for the most part, I lived in Texas.
Yeah, and then I moved to Florida, the Panhandle, and then went to college in Orlando, then moved to Charleston, South Carolina, then to Denver, then back to Sacramento.
Man, you've been around.
Back to, in more than ways than one, but.
Yeah.
And then back to Denver, then down to South Florida. Then we moved here to Austin. So I looked at it because when we moved here, our kids said, please, can we not move anymore? And it's in my blood and kind of DNA that I move every 4 to 5 years since I grew up like a gypsy. And so I said, okay, I'll wait at least until you graduate, which I did fulfill my promise. But I started getting the itch probably a year or two before, I said we have to go again.
Texas is the first place I lived where I broke that. I because I grew up a Navy brat, I was always, we move every 3 or 4 years, just like you were saying. And so every 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'd be like, gosh, it's just getting kind of edgy.
Yeah. And now y'all are just brats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but so I've been here almost 20 years in Texas, and I don't have any intention of moving.
I do love Texas. Out of all the places I've lived, culturally, it's been my favorite.
Did you live in England for a while too?
I did. So I, from second grade, I believe, first or second grade, until we didn't move back to the U.S. until 1990. So my formative years.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to British school. It was during the Gulf War. We weren't allowed to live on base because there was such a shortage of military housing.
Oh, wow.
And so I grew up with an British English education. When we came back to the U.S., I had to relearn math. U.S. history was taught totally different.
Yeah. You had to brush your teeth.
I had
to. What base was that in England?
Lake and Heath.
Lake and Heath. Yeah, I've been there. When I was a lot younger than when you were there, I guess it was in mid-70s, we were stationed in London, and we went to, I went to school at High Wycombe. Did you hear? That was a small Air Force installation. So. But that traveling lifestyle, though, it gets under your skin, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I'm addicted to it a little bit.
Yeah.
Where did you meet Bill, your husband?
In Denver. He was. My kids went to a small charter school, and my daughter said, "Mom, can I join softball?" And I said, "Sure, I don't care." So she was going. I was working a lot at the time. I had my territory from Wyoming to New Mexico, and I was kind of a. Not a very, I guess, involved mother. I show up at the game and they're like, "Are you her nanny? Are you? Who are you?" And that's where I met Bill. And so, it was just he was very involved. He was the vice president of the Parent Senate Board. He was really, really involved, and our girls were best friends. So it took a long time. When he was first asked me out, I said, "No way, I'm not doing this. I'm not ruining my daughter's friendship with your daughter." And after a year, I finally said, okay, but let's keep it, when we don't have them, so that they won't really, if it doesn't work out, they won't be impacted. And here we are, 10 years later, 11 years later.
Well, I saw that your first marriage, you got married in a drive-through
I did.
in Vegas.
I saw
in a
that.
limo. in a limo.
And then, and your second marriage.
I want to, don't just go past that.
Well,
She wants to get to the good part.
I want to hear about the drive-by wedding in the limo. You just like drove up to a drive-up window?
So we decided to elope, and I said, let's just go to Vegas and elope. I didn't even know about the drive-through. And then, but apparently, I think Britney Spears got married there. I think Michael Jordan maybe got married
at the drive-through?
Through the drive-through. And so it's a big drive-through chapel wedding.
you need to watch TMZ more often,
So
Steve.
you
need to
drive the car into the chapel?
So you get into a limo, they pick you up at the
like
at your
Dairy Queen.
casino.
I guess.
And you load up, and then they take you, and you're waiting like Chick-fil-A. You're just in
There's
a line.
a line of
There's
people?
a line.
Oh, my
And so we
God.
finally pull up. It's our turn. The pastor jumps in, and we're both, at the time we lived in Florida, we were both pretty tan. So he starts rapping off in Spanish, and we're staring at him like, and then my first husband says, no, hablo inglés. Like we don't speak Spanish. And so he's like, oh, lo siento, because he thought that we both were Hispanic or Latin. So he jumps out. We had to wait longer for an English-speaking pastor. And then he
That's
finally,
insane. I
you
never
sit
knew
on
this.
one side of the limo, they sit on the other, you do your rights, and then off you go.
Off you go.
I'm going to start that in Dripping Springs.
Why?
I'm going to turn the
should.
Dairy
Great
Queen
idea.
to a drive-through. We're the wedding capital of the world.
We
Why is
are.
there not a
What are you
drive-through?
doing?
That's a great
Seriously.
idea.
Steve, write it down.
When we get done here, we're going to start a new
Let's do
business.
it, Steve, right now.
That's a great idea.
We're totally doing it right outside the Keller Williams portico that's going to
Yeah.
drive in.
How much did you pay for that?
I have no idea.
$12. Everything is
Yeah, I
$12.
know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was 21. I have no idea.
We could be the next billionaires of Dripping Springs.
There you go.
Exactly.
We're doing it.
Yeah. So I cut you off. You were going to talk about
The second marriage.
The second marriage.
Hopefully the last.
Yeah. What was you were going to get to some dirt on the second marriage?
Bring it, Michelle.
Well, what was unusual about the second marriage?
So we were going through the visa process, and our attorney in Panama calls and says, you can't get your visas separately. April, you're going to have to be married to Bill. And I said, oh, I mean, we pretty much are. We have a trust, and everything is owned by us. So it's common law. No, Panama does not recognize common law. Okay. And I need it by Tuesday. And it was Thursday. And you have to then send it to the consulate, and we need it back by end of week next week.
Holy cow.
And it was this weekend, a year ago.
Oh my goodness.
And yesterday, a year ago, I called Michelle and said, Michelle, I know that you married Zoom. I saw it on Facebook. You did it remotely for your son. Do you have the power to do that for me? And she said, I absolutely do. Because Michelle is
It's amazing what you can
she
get
knows
online
everything.
these days.
If you,
know everything.
if you need anything, you just call Michelle. And so she said, well, we're going to a barbecue on Monday, but we'll stop by and we'll marry you guys at your house. We were in the middle of moving, closing on our house, planning our trip to Panama. And I said, okay, perfect. I threw on a beach dress.
Yep.
Told Bill throw on a button down. And her whole family sat on our couch while we got married for
That's
20,
better
30
than
minutes.
a limo drive-through wedding.
It was very intimate for me. And Michelle did such a great job. She
Oh,
blessed
thank
our
you.
rings, and she made it, what was really just a quick thrown together.
Yeah.
None of our children were there, but they were all very happy. We'd been planning for years to do it, but we just never.
So you were together coming up on 11 years, but you've only been married now a year.
A year on Monday.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned Panama, and I guess we can start talking about that now. You've moved to Panama.
And the crazy thing is, we got our residency without ever having stepped foot in the country until we met with our attorneys to get a residency. So we had been looking for years. I knew I wanted to expat. Bill had never been out of the country, but I was raised overseas and always felt,
Called to go back.
yeah, there's a little bit more that we could experience and probably open up a whole world of investment opportunities when we, were able to be a little bit more fluid and reduce our cost of living greatly. Yeah. And so I started looking at Belize first, Costa Rica. We looked at several countries, and Panama at the time had a visa program. It was an agreement with the U.S., a friendly nations visa program, where you could buy a corporation and then you could get full residency, permanent residency for like $5,000. And we always, even if we wanted to stay in the U.S., I wanted a plan B. You know, if something happens, where can we get that's within 3 days and get the heck out of Dodge? And so Panama ended up checking all the boxes. It uses the U.S. dollar. It was very affordable. It had an affordable, easy residency program at the time. And so our attorneys we had been talking to, and she called and said, the president has made a decision to close this. You now have to be here in July and get this thing wrapped up.
Which president was this?
The current president of Panama. And so we said, okay, let's go. We got into a flight, took our daughter. Of course, Michaela lost her passport.
Oh yeah, that was an experience right around the time I couldn't find my passport was expired too. That was a debacle. You know, I did a little bit of research on the expats, and I found out that according to the United Nations, 3.2 United States citizens, according to the United Nations, 3.2 million United States citizens are expats, but the Department of State, the U.S. Department of State, say upwards of 10 million. So it's a real discrepancy. But I looked at the ranks of where people are going.
Before you do that, what is the definition of an expat?
It says an individual living and or working in a country other than their own country of origin or citizenship, often temporarily for work, mainly for work reasons, but sometimes it's for, health reasons and things like that, the healthcare.
Yeah, they call them the healthcare refugees if they're from the U.S.
Oh, is that right? Because
it's so expensive here.
Yeah.
So I looked at some of the ranks, the top 3 and the bottom 3 for not only for U.S. Mexico is the number 1 place that expats are going to, but all over the world. This was according to a survey done by Expat Insider last year. The number 1 expat community is Taiwan, and that is for safety. They feel the most safe. They feel the most safe there. Number 2 is Mexico, for all expats, and it's for personal happiness. People are ranking that. Number 3, Costa Rica, and that's because of the friendly population.
You said Costa Rica was on your short list,
It was,
right?
but it just started getting really expensive in the last few years. So did Belize. I think more people started hearing about it, and prices started going up. And then the Costa Rica in the last couple of years for safety has started pulling some red flags.
Oh, really?
So this was last year. But then, then we're going to look at the bottom 3. The bottom 3, not surprisingly.
California.
That's pretty good, Steve. South Africa, Kuwait, and this one surprised me. Well, I could see Kuwait because there's a lot of oil and gas industry there, but this one surprised me. Italy,
really?
Yeah, and it was ranked based on safety, jobs and disposable income issues, and then personal freedoms. And apparently, in Italy, what I was reading is that a lot of foreigners have a much harder time trying to find secure jobs there. Because they won't hire, they really won't hire anybody other than Italians. So I thought that was really interesting.
There are some countries that don't like Americans for some reasons, and I think Italy is one of those.
Well, April had talked about this also when we originally were talking about her expat status, and it said that you can only spend 35 days in the U.S. or international waters. If you spend 36 days, then all of your tax implications hit. And as of 2022.
So that's, I want to make sure I understand. That means you can leave Panama for a total of 35 days. But if
No. You can come in the U.S. for only 30.
I can only spend 35 days in the U.S. on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
And if you spend 36 days, you lose that
foreign earned income
Panamanian
exclusion,
which in 2022 is going to be $112,000.
So the foreign earned income exclusion is an IRS thing. The U.S. is the only country. I've heard one other country that I didn't even know existed. So I'm just going to say the U.S. is the only real country, known country that taxes its citizens no matter where they are in the world. So other countries don't do that. If you leave the country, they don't tax you. The U.S. taxes you no matter where you live in the world. And so
shocking.
Yeah, I know.
And then they don't
get enough of.
Then they send it over to other countries.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So the IRS came up with the foreign earned income exclusion. And what that means is they will allow their citizens to make up to, what is it this year?
Well, for 2022 is going to be 112.
Okay. So Bill and I, last year, it was like, we knew collectively we were going to make about 220 combined that would not be taxed at all as long as we do not step foot in the U.S. 36 days.
Oh.
So we can go anywhere in the world. We can be in Panama. We can be in Colombia. We can be in Europe. And it doesn't matter where we live as long as we don't step foot in the U.S. for 36 days. And then after the 220 or roughly whatever that amount is, then the IRS taxes us. But then you're at a much lower tax bracket.
Right.
So it just opened up so much for us.
Were the tax advantages one of the main reasons?
It was, yeah. I mean, from multiple angles, because you're talking about property taxes that we were sitting on. You're talking about, fortunately, Texas is not state income tax. And that's another thing when people expat, they have to be careful about where their state of residency is because the states will still tax them as well. So many expats will move.
You still have a Texas residency,
Correct.
But because we don't have an income tax, then you're not.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
And you have a permanent visa as
Correct.
well, right? So what exactly does that mean?
So I have a permanent residency visa in Panama, which means I can live there for the rest of my life if I want to, and I don't have to get out of the country. So if you come to visit me, you can stay there on a tourist visa because you're a U.S. citizen. Every country's agreement is different, but because you're a U.S. citizen, you can stay there for 180 days, and then Panama says, Michelle, you have to get out. I can live there permanently full-time for the rest of my life, and they will never kick me out of the country. If I choose not to live in Panama, like right now, we're going to go to Ireland. We're going to spend the next few months in Europe. We don't have to come back to Panama to keep that residency alive, except for once every 2 years. We have to come back to Panama, step foot in the soil, get our passport stamped, and then our residency visa is maintained.
That's wild.
It's interesting. I feel like more and more, what I was reading is that more and more people are doing this and figuring out ways to kind of protect their retirement while you are overseas. If you are retired, you still can receive your Social Security. Mm-hmm. And you can also...
So you can move to Panama and still get a Social Security.
And Panama is a very, very military-friendly country as well because of the Panama Canal. And there's just some real benefits as far as expat military, huge expat military communities.
Yes, John Hopkins is there. VA benefits are accepted. You're receiving your full Social Security pension. Many people move there. The Pensionado visa is another visa program that works. And if you can prove retirement income of, I don't know, it's like under $1,500 per couple of monthly income coming in. Welcome in.
Wow.
Tell me, you told us a story, my husband and I, about a friend of yours that had to have he had an issue with his knee or something like that.
Yes.
Tell that story.
We've had several. So he went in, he actually flew over. We had dinner we were supposed to have dinner. We get a text. I'm in the hospital. My leg is blown up to twice the size. Now he's an older gentleman and they were afraid he had a blood clot. So he was in the hospital having ultrasounds, you name it. They were freaking out that he was going to throw a clot. And they ended up, I think they kept him. He was in the hospital for probably total at least 24 hours with full ultrasounds, medication, you name it. We said, how much did they charge you?
You ready?
$7.
No way.
$7.
I don't understand how these other countries, because that's not a socialist country, is it?
No.
How are these other countries doing these things so much better than our country?
Well,
I don't understand that.
It's other than you can pay for the very nice hospitals, which are going to cost you more, still a fraction of what it is in the U.S., but it has to do with facilities. It has to do, all of their doctors, almost all of them train in the U.S., and then go back. And a lot of times when you're especially in the private hospitals, you're speaking to English-speaking doctors. And I think we are such a litigious society. We have to have so much. Many of the physicians we spoke to in Costa Rica, in Belize, in Panama all said they were practicing there because they don't have to carry the malpractice insurance that's killing them. And everything's a cost that is passed down.
Yeah.
And the technology, the care is far superior in many of the other countries. In fact, when Bill was working for, I won't name their name, but it's a very large corporation here. Part of their healthcare plan was if you needed anything major, his company was paying for their employees to fly to Costa Rica for the procedures.
Because it's so much cheaper.
And they would even pay a full round trip and stay for your plus one to help you.
Oh, wow.
Because it was cheaper for them to send 2 people to Costa Rica and the procedure and pay for your entire stay than it is to get this procedure done here.
Wild.
That's why so many people say the U.S. healthcare refugees, because they're leaving in droves. They're in Ecuador. They're in a lot of the people that we spoke to were there because of, long existing medical conditions that they were being wiped out here in the U.S. and couldn't afford to.
We had
live.
Dr. Lewis on not too long ago, and we were talking about how pharmaceuticals and medical facilities and physicians in general nowadays seem to be treating the symptoms and not the actual root of the problem. And maybe that's a whole paradigm shift, that I think maybe Costa Rica has more of a holistic approach also. And like, let's figure out the root cause of this. And instead of, let's just fill you up with drugs and drugs and drugs.
Symptoms,
right.
which is driven by the pharmaceutical companies being basically driving how medicine is practiced now, which is ridiculous.
It is. It's mob run to me here.
So you're traveling around, you're hopping from country to country, and the thing that horrifies me most about all of this, I've lost sleep.
It's your suitcase, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's one suitcase and a backpack.
I don't understand. You can only have one suitcase.
Well, but it's easier for us to travel.
Yeah.
And so we said, we wanted to travel.
Steve, you have 5 shirts and 5 pants.
And this is a Friday shirt. Monday, I'll wear the Monday shirt.
I'm taking 3 suitcases to Hawaii for a week.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I do have to admit, I had to Pinterest, what is a digital nomad suitcase look like? And on Pinterest, they have an entire wardrobe capsule.
Digital nomad.
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
And
digital nomad.
It'll show you, you need to have 10 shirts, right? 5 short sleeve, 5 long sleeve. You need to have 1 pair of jeans and this many shorts, this many pants. Because you don't know, too, when we're in Panama, it's hot. Then we go to Lima, Peru, Cusco. It was cold, way colder. But then as we're traveling, if we need to go pick up a jacket.
Yeah.
It's, we just go pick up a jacket.
Right.
I've left things for the housekeepers that I know I won't need at the next destination. If it's not fitting in my backpack, we usually, or suitcase, we don't buy it. So it has saved us a lot of money.
Oh, I bet. And you probably, when you're there, you're just like, I just need a warm jacket. It doesn't need to be some fancy brand. It's just like, oh, this one will keep me warm. Right?
Exactly.
How am I going to take my 72 pairs of flip-flops?
There you go.
That is horrific.
Oh, look at that.
I just don't even know how I would survive.
You survive. It's a trade-off. It is a trade-off. There are sacrifices that we've had to, and a lot of things that we take for granted too here in the U.S. Like you can drink the water.
Yeah.
You can't drink the water in Panama?
Well, when we were in Panama, you can. Oh. Well, not in the interior. So where we stay, you can. But in other parts of the country, you absolutely
Or even brushing your teeth. You need to have bottled water.
When we were in Lima, Peru, we had bottled water even to brush our teeth. We would not even put our toothbrush in there. So
it's an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I could do it.
Am I going to get a crippling stomach bacteria or not?
That's you swimming in Town Lake.
Yeah, that's true. I could swim in Town Lake. Yeah, I know. Probably, I'm sure that water's much dirtier than what's in the tap in Lima. But
so what is it that you missed? And I asked this question the other day, and I asked it of Bill. Mm-hmm. But you can't be your family, and it can't be food, right? And so what is it that you think that you miss the most? Can you think of something that you're like?
Since you asked me, we've been talking about it because, I'm like, am I missing something? Is there one thing It's not just me and Bill. It is many of our friends that we have talked to when we do have to come back to the U.S. We're excited to see our family and friends, but we all feel a certain amount of dread because it's so, it's kind of the best way I can compare is if you've ever taken a cruise and then you get off and you're kind of hit with the reality of the real world coming back home, going through the airports, the culture, all of the cultures in Central and South America that we've been to are so helpful and so nice and so different than how you're treated here.
Have you had any scary moments though? Like where you?
Well, it depends on. Bill and I are kind of adventurous.
Depends on which version of the scary you want to hear.
We were coming from Cusco, or actually Machu Picchu, going back to Cusco, and our driver, as we're driving, Bill asks him. He doesn't speak any English. Bill asks him, "This isn't the way that we came," and so we're thinking we're about to be kidnapped and on the news. And he says,
"You wouldn't be on the news. Nobody would care."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
It's true.
It's true.
And so he says, this is shorter. Well, then we get to a very small village. This other car comes up, rolls down. As soon as it says, "The policia are up ahead. You need to turn around." And the guy starts freaking out and telling us in Spanish that the police are very corrupt. They're going to take our money. And, we were thinking, okay, what's a $20 bribe? It's not a big deal. But the way he was reacting, we're like, what are they going to, what are they going to take one of us out of here? What's going to happen? But he kind of panicked, flipped around, took us to a downside of a street and told us in Spanish to get out of the car. And that he was going to drive.
And you didn't even know where you were, really?
No idea. In the middle of the Andes Mountains in a village I've never even heard of. And probably an hour or two from our final destination.
Jeez.
And it's getting dark. And he says, "Get out of the car." And
now I want you to get this visual of April getting out of the car. And what do you have in your hand, April?
A coffee. I had asked him to stop so I could have a cup of coffee. So Bill and I both have a cup of coffee. And he says, "Get out. I'm going to drive down the street, over this bridge, past the police checkpoint, and I'm going to go down one of the alleys. Y'all just go, walk down there, and then I'll find you." So I look at Bill and I said, "Do you have our passports? Do you have our cash?"
Yeah.
And he said, "They're in my pocket." And I'm like, "Okay, get out. We live here now." So this is, it,
So, but all your stuff was still in the car.
Well, because we had been on a 3-day hike to Machu Picchu, we only had our backpacks and we had to carry in everything. So nothing that couldn't be replaced. We didn't have our valuables. We're all at the hotel. And the majority of our suitcases both of our suitcases were at the hotel. So we figured if we could just get back to the hotel, it would be fine. And so we get out, the car zooms off, and we're just standing there in this village. And Bill's 6'2", and, everybody's brown and short. and
You guys didn't stick out at all.
The exact opposite. And everyone's looking at us, and we're just jaunting around, walking with our coffees.
Wow.
We walk over the bridge. The policia all turn and look at us.
And here's April walking with her coffee. Just sauntering by.
Hola. And then we're thinking, which street is he down? And so we're, looking down the streets, and then we just see a little hand pop up and then pop quickly back into his car. So we're just jauntering down the sidewalk, and then both of us open his door and jump in and are scrooched down in the seat. So
oh my gosh, it's like a scene from a movie.
Yes. He takes off driving. Bill and I are laying down in the back seat trying to keep our heads.
When did the bullet fire start?
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Sorry.
All of a sudden, this cop car zooms up behind us with his lights on. And our driver, I could just see him sweating.
Wow.
And Bill and I are like, well, this is it. Are we going to get arrested? What's going to happen? And we're on a very narrow kind of cobblestone street. And as soon as it opens up, he's at sirens and everything, zooms past us.
Oh, geez.
And our driver starts speaking rapidly in Spanish, like he's so relieved, but he pooped his pants. And so he was so scared. Then he starts asking us in Spanish, like, please don't tell his boss, because he wasn't supposed to take us the shortcut. He was supposed to take us like everybody else did. But he didn't want to do the traffic. It was Friday. He probably wanted to get home to his family.
Yeah.
So he learned a very valuable lesson that
Wow.
day. But
that's the stuff that makes life interesting, right? It all worked out okay, but what a great story.
I know. It was an amazing story. I could just see April just walking by all these crooked cops and with her little coffee. Hola.
Yeah, I think
that's why we get along.
Yeah. I think the advantage that you and I have and people that grew up in military families is that traveling like this doesn't scare us as much as people that grew up in one place, never traveled, never went anyplace else. We've seen that. We've seen that it can be okay to go someplace new and make new friends. And
you kind of have tunnel vision, though, I think, also living here in the States for the most part, especially here in Texas, because everything is so far away. So if you really haven't kind of left Texas. Like
it's
me.
true. You can live 5 different places in Texas, and it's like you lived in 5 different countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about that the cultural differences in Texas. But when I went to Amsterdam, that was one place I could totally adapt to that Dutch lifestyle. It was just amazing. Loved it there.
That Machu Picchu trail, what was that like?
There are no words.
Really?
Out of everything I've done in my life. Number one, it was the hardest. So I just thought, I'll just, go hiking. I've been hiking, and we used to live in Colorado. This is not a big deal. And I had to do some serious self-talk of, and I was not talking very nicely to myself. I'm like, you will get up these stairs, and you will, raise your leg one more time of the 1,000th time that I had to. And there's not a very much oxygen up there. So when you have to fly into Cusco, and they said you have to spend at least a day or two
getting acclimated.
And so we're like, this isn't a big deal. Bill and I thought we were going to die. The first night, my heart is beating so hard. His head was pounding so hard. I felt like I could see his head moving. And the next day they said, you need Coca tea. And just have the Coca tea, have the Coca candy. Well, then we find out this
is cocaine.
It's the leaves that they make into cocaine.
Of course she felt great.
And
she's flying.
Yeah.
But it has so many medicinal qualities. Now, to get cocaine, they put acetone in it.
Yeah.
They have to do a whole process. But the coca leaves, you don't get any more than caffeine. And I didn't even feel a buzz from caffeine. It makes you really calm, but it does something to you to help you with altitude. Huh. And so we had, our hotel, because we told them we weren't feeling well, the hotel brought us some coca tea, and within hours, our headaches and heartbeat stopped.
Oh, wow.
And I felt amazing. We got a big thing of Coca candy. Well, Bill loved the Coca candy so much that he's like, we have to take this. Well, then we find out the Coca candy is not allowed in the U.S. Oh. The Coca tea is not allowed in the U.S. So we had all of this Coca stuff that we had to give away because they're not allowed.
Did he have withdrawals?
He misses the Coca candy. We may have to go back there to get some. But to answer your question on Machu Picchu, it's incredible.
How far is it?
So we took the hike.
Yeah.
We took a 2-day hike. Each day was 8 to 10 hours of walking.
Wow. And then did you camp somewhere, or did you stay?
There are people who do camp. We stayed in a glorified hostel. Okay. So, and it's weird too, the way that you get dropped off, because when you hire a guide in most countries, I expect somebody to be holding my hand the whole time. Yeah. I'm in the room right next to you. And our guide just drops us off at this, it's called Ollantaytambo, this tiny village. And he says, you're going to be staying at that hotel at 4:00 in the morning. I need you to get up. The hotel will provide you a bag lunch. Make sure you get it, or you won't be eating on your hike, because we'll be in the middle of the Andes and there's no Starbucks or Chick-fil-A up there. And you're going to walk down this long street and stop when you see the train, and make sure you get on the train.
Oh, gosh.
At, 6 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, and then you're going to stop at mile marker, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be in the middle of it's the entrance to the Amazon. The train will stop. You need to get off, even though it's not it's just a mile marker. It's not a train stop. And that's the entrance to the Inca Trail. And so just make sure you guys get off there. I'm terrified because we don't speak Spanish at all. I mean, very little. And it's 4:00 in the morning. We get up. There's this little 12-year-old girl who's like, buenos dias. And we're like, buenos dias. Where do we go? And we have our backpacks on and a little, paper bag.
Yeah.
And we start walking down. Well, it's in the middle of the night. We're all walking down this cobblestone street, and it's people. You can hear people from Germany, people from Switzerland, people from.
That's cool.
And it's just everybody's being quiet. We all have our backpacks on, and we're all walking down to this train.
What was in your bag lunch?
It was like a sandwich, an orange, like little stuff.
Like
nothing.
Elementary school lunch.
Steve would be like, I don't eat cheese.
Yeah.
Steve, it was a problem,
Was it?
Yeah, because Bill and I both have, we eat a certain way. And so but when you're hungry and you're on a trail, you eat whatever.
I agree. Yeah. When when I've done like ultra runs, I'll eat things. Like one time I did a 50-mile run, And the first aid station, they had these boiled potatoes with a little batch of sea salt next to it. And they were just boiled potatoes. And I first aid station, I'm like, that's disgusting. And then by like mile 45, I was like, oh, these things are like nectar of the gods. I'm like, they were so good. Must have eaten like 8 of them.
It's so true. When you're hungry, you just eat
it's true. When you're hungry, there's no choice. It's just whatever's there, you'll eat.
Yeah.
Do you pay much attention to stuff that's going on in the States when you're overseas?
We do. So we still receive, and we're looking at it, and that's another thing that's interesting because, we'll be there and it's like mass shooting.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a national level, and then we also look at it where our children are, because we have one in Austin, we have one in Kansas City, and we have one in Monterey.
And you are still on the Dripping Springs Neighbors page, and you also listen to the podcast.
Exactly.
So she knows some.
Exactly. I mean, I want to know what's happening where my children are, but I also want to keep my eye on what's happening in the nation. We're still invested here, and so things can affect our investments as well. News, not just financial news, but economic news, and and on top of that, we're not really sure what's going to happen with this war. And so we just want to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on and how that affects whatever country we're in at the time. And, but we were in Medellin, and, my parents are like, are you safe? And I'm like, do you know how many mass shootings were just where you live? Do
Boy, it's a great perspective. Yeah, it's true.
The town of Pablo Escobar, and she feels safer there.
I was actually going to ask you about that. When you're traveling around the world, do people talk about the U.S. the way we used to talk about Medellin and some of these really bad, very corrupt cities and towns and countries?
So it's interesting because the U.S. will send out reports of this country is this danger level, this country is this danger level. Well, their countries do the same thing to the U.S. The U.S. is this danger level. We recommend against traveling there. We recommend against traveling to these cities, specifically these areas. They're too dangerous.
Chicago.
Yeah. New Orleans, Chicago, Detroit.
You had a notice from the FBI too. It said that if you go to a certain, I can't remember what area it was.
We were in Panama, and the State Department sent out, if you go to, they have red zones where the cartel are running the show.
Yeah.
And in Panama, where it borders up to Colombia, it's called the Darien. And you can't even, it's just jungle. If you go there, you're just an idiot. But we got sent a notice. The FBI will not come after you. So if you decide to go hiking in the Darien, you're on your own. Do not expect us to come find you. So.
And even if they did, they probably wouldn't find you anyway.
No, they wouldn't.
Wow.
Well, it'd be Bill eating his cocoa candy in the corner.
When we first got to Panama, we were having dinner, and one of the Panamanians came up and said, I heard your country have trouble know if boy or girl. If you put down pants, I help you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I also want to tell you the story of the layaway meal. That is one of the best stories. I love this story.
We landed in Medellin. We landed at night. We stay in Airbnb, so we get we usually try to stay in each place for 3 weeks to a month so we can get discounts on our stay. And then we also buy all of our food so that we can cook it and we're not spending money eating out all the time. And so we get there, it's late, we don't have time to go to the grocery store. We ask the security, can we walk down the street? And I'm a little bit nervous just because of the things I've heard of Medellin. Sure. And I said, is it safe to walk down the street? Because it's like, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock. She says, oh, yes, it's safe. So we walk down the street, go to this steak restaurant. It's super nice. And the guy, they didn't speak a word of English. So we wanted wine. We were having some translation issues. So we just had to bring us Tinto Vino, whatever you have, just bring it. And Bill's like, great, we have a $500 bottle of wine now, right? We have no idea what we're getting. And at the end of it, they always have a different person who takes your payment.
Okay.
And so they come over and she's speaking very rapidly to us and we cannot figure out what is she saying to us. She's talking like 2 payments, 4 payments. And so we're sitting there, get us a translator because we don't know what you're saying. And this is money. We want to be clear now. It's not a bottle of wine.
Sure.
So she brings over somebody and the girl says, is this your first time in Colombia? And we said, yeah. And she said, okay, so you Americans can afford and other countries can afford a dinner and paying at one time. The citizens here, they don't make much money. So when they come, it's a big deal and they break it into quarterly payments.
This was like $100 meal.
That's kind of like the sandwich we had the other day. We should have broke it up and quartered.
Don't say where. Don't say where.
It was 100%, like maybe 125 with tip.
Really?
And so we said, no. We just want to pay it just once.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, but here if they have a birthday party or anniversary, and that's what we were wondering too, as we were sitting like, is this a holiday? Why is everybody in these big groups and these big celebrations? But I've watched Pablo Escobar. And so this table next to us, this gentleman walks up and everybody stands up and, hola, General. And I'm like, General? Are we about to have a drive-by? Because I don't want to be near anybody who's associated with, the cartel not liking you. And it was a little uneasy for a minute just because we had to get past all of the prejudices that we had in our brain. Yeah. And it ended up being wonderful. And
a lot of those are from stuff you see on TV, just like you said.
It is.
It's like made up dramatic stuff. Some of it's based on fact, but some of it is. It's prejudices that are put in our brain by the stuff we watch on Netflix and TV.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up, I have family down in the valley, and a lot of that cartel stuff it's scary.
No, I know that's real, but you were in a nice restaurant. Chances are you were pretty safe there.
We were totally safe, and we've walked around.
Or blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, both.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that. As long as as nothing bad happened, it's okay.
But did you die?
Yeah.
No.
Am I died?
Exactly.
Am I died?
You died.
Am I died? Well, April, this was fun. I'm glad you got to come and visit
fun.
with us.
It's a pleasure. And I will always carve out one of my 35 days to spend with you, too.
Well, I love it. Yeah, I'm glad you're here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
It was my honor.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.